All right. All right. So thank you guys so much for coming to our part one summer prep for rising seniors. And this is hosted by the Gear Up program. And we'd just like to give them a great round of applause and shout out for Gear Up because they really do an amazing job getting information out to you guys and also having events and workshops and all types of things for the students and making themselves available. Every school doesn't have a college and career counselor, but even more do not have a Gear Up program and all of the support that they give. So if you guys can remember, if you can send them an email, send them a card, if you want to drop them some snacks or something, just to let them know how much you appreciate them because they really lift a heavy load and are very helpful to me as well. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our program. They also, Gear Up has me in here also because I do some consulting on the side. So they have me in here as a consultant today and some other things for this summer that we're going to go into in a second. But just to give you guys some quick background about me, this will be the only slide about me. I graduated from Lincoln University with a bachelor's in science in psychology. And I have a master's degree in school counseling from Lehigh University. I have 2 books that I have written, an ebook and a hardcover book. And actually, I think a lot of you have that book because Gear Up has been passing that out since 9th grade. So I'm pretty sure many of you have the book. I wouldn't suggest that you get it as seniors because it's kind of building up to your senior year. But definitely if you know anyone that has kids in middle school or younger ages, it's more appropriate. A lot of your kids have read the book and have been using the strategies on me. I have been following from my own strategies in the book. I'm cracking up. One of the chapters in the book talks about making yourself known and making sure that the college and career counselor knows you, making sure your counselor knows you, so that they'll be at the forefront of their mind when they're trying to write letters of recommendations and things like that. And one of my students slipped up last week and told me that he's been coming down just so he can be in the forefront of my mind. And I just laughed. And he knew exactly what I was laughing about. My favorite grade was 8th grade because I did that one twice. That's a whole nother story for another day. And my favorite people are my Aunt Gladys, may she rest in peace, and my nephew Sebastian, who is now getting ready to turn 10 years old. All right. And so my things that make me happy are family that win by being proactive. So every family on here, on this webinar, you're being proactive because you're trying to get things ready for next year. And what makes me angry is families that lose by not planning. And that's actually a lot of what we've been going through with the last couple of weeks here, where there are some families or are some students that haven't been paying attention to anything that we've been talking about all year long. It happens every year. I'm not talking about anyone specific. And so now they're kind of seeing the results of kind of waiting till now to do certain things, or go certain places. And so we're trying to hurry up and do some catch up with those particular students and those families. All right. If you want to take a screenshot, and I'm actually going to send you guys this video and send you the presentation, but here are ways to contact me. So here's my email address, my Instagram account, which I'm pretty much on there every day when school is open. We have our Schoology 2025 access code, which I just forgot to put this on here. So if Miss Gallagher, if you happen to be on Schoology, if you can drop the access code in the chat for the parents and the students, because we send emails, but we also put a lot of things on our Schoology account as reminders. We have a YouTube channel, and then there's also a college and career website, which has a lot of information on there. And then lastly, I do have a schedule link, but it's getting ready to get cut off next week. But what's going to happen for this summer, I'll give you that surprise on the next slide. All right, if you can hold on one second, because also on the other side, I am adding people to the meeting tonight. So if you just give me a second, I'm dropping some people in here too so that they can get in. All right. Okay. So one thing that I wanted to talk to you about before I get into the next slide is you guys have an opportunity to participate in Camp College. So Camp College is a program that's designed for first generation underrepresented students who are looking to apply to college. And it used to be in person, and it was, they had like, just a limited amount of space. They had some students that had a camp on the East Coast and some students that had a camp on the West Coast. But via COVID, they moved it virtual and kind of found that virtual worked for them. So there is a sign-up sheet, but I'm pretty sure anybody who signs up by the deadline will be able to participate in the program. So this year, the event is going to take place on August, what is the date I have on here? August the 6th, which is a Tuesday. And I believe it's either from 8:30 to 1 or 9:30 to 1. Okay. And it's going to be all on Zoom. And so I'm going to go ahead and put this link in the chat for you. So this is the page that it looks like here. Okay, so it's Tuesday, August the 6th. And it's a really great time, and they'll even give you a certificate. So there are a lot of counselors, school counselors across the country that are participating. And you guys can't see my screen, can you? I'm going to share my screen in a different way. All right. All right, you guys are able to see it now. Okay. So let me find that slide for you. All right, there we go. So we have Camp College here. So again, it's going to be held on Tuesday, August the 6th, 2024. And so here's all the information here. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that link in the chat for you. All right. So everyone should have that link, and definitely check out that link and see if Camp College is the way that you guys want to go. Okay. And then I also have something else in the chat here. All right. So this is really a great opportunity. So definitely make sure you take advantage of that. All right. Now, gifts for you. Gear Up is also having me do some office hours for you. For you guys are the eager beavers, mostly the ones who are on this call tonight. We have some summer office hours for you that if you want to go ahead and start working on your application over the summer, or if you have some questions, whether a student wants to meet or whether the parent wants to meet or the whole family, we're going to give you guys a Zoom link and a Calendly link to sign up to meet with me between July 1st and the end of September. Yes, after school starts. So obviously those days in September will be evening hours, which is more convenient for a lot of parents. And so some of you guys on the call, especially the students, are like, what are we doing over the summer? We're doing what over the summer? Yes, you guys need to do some work over the summer. So still enjoy your summer. But if you really want to make yourself as prepared as possible and reduce a lot of stress that you're going to have during senior year, you guys really want to make sure that you're doing little bits and pieces of your application over the summer. And we'll go into a little bit more detail about that. And then our next event that we're going to have is the week right before school starts. It's our Plan for Senior Year Part 2. It's going to take place on Wednesday, August the 21st, in person at the school. So we're going to talk about the application timeline and financial aid. So we're going to talk about, in specific, Norristown area high school's timeline. So you definitely want to come and kind of get a head start on that. And that's going to be from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. So everyone who's registered for this event, we're gonna automatically register you guys for the next event as well, so that you'll know about that. Okay. All right. Now for tonight, we will cover your summer checklist of things that you need to do, some financial aid basics, and creating a college list. So if we can just check the chat again, and make sure the chat is working. If you guys are ready to start, can you drop in the chat, let's go, hashtag let's go. So let's drop some things in the chat. I can't move until I see some chat movement. All right. So we got let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. All right, that's what I'm talking about. Okay. Now, I need you to drop this in the chat for me. What is your biggest concern about college planning? What is your biggest concern about college planning? And Ms. McNeil, I saw your link in the chat. We'll try to see if we can record something. If not, we'll work something out for you. No worries. And Anne is very prepared because a lot of the information that I'm going over, she was in my senior year prep for juniors program. So she's pretty much on point. All right. So some of the things that we have in our chat here are, essays. Yes. How to start an essay, where to start, financial aid and creating a college list, having the encouragement and financial aid, and the FAFSA. So I see the comment about having the encouragement. I think I know what you mean, but can you go and give me a little bit more detail about what having encouragement means? Looking at college requirements, the essay, absolutely. All right. So we're going to have some more things in the chat. I'll look to see what that last essay, filling out the common application. Absolutely. All right. So if you guys can just take a screenshot of this page here, these are the main things that we want you to focus on over the summer. We also see SAT optional or SEN. Absolutely. Okay. So I want you guys to take a screenshot of this. And again, I'm going to send you guys this video. Okay. So I'm going to talk about all the thing that's bulleted first. I should have put that last. I'm going to skip that and come to that last because I know once I start talking about that, I'm going to forget to go back to this page. So one of the things that you want to make sure that you do over the summer is to build your college list. And we're going to talk about that in detail a little bit later tonight. And so with that college list, you want to have that before we come back in September for a few reasons. So number one, you want to have that list together of about 6 to 12 schools so that when you start going to college fairs or when colleges come to visit us or when you get a lot of mail, right? You can kind of have an idea of where you want to apply. So your list may start with 50 schools or 75 schools, but you want to start getting that list down to 6 to 12, okay? And ways that you can do that are visiting colleges, whether you look online, whether you go in person, and do some research to kind of curate a list that's good for you. So we'll talk about that in a second. You also want to start thinking about and or requesting letters of recommendations. So if you ask your teacher for a letter of recommendation tomorrow, I'm pretty sure they're not going to whip it up for you tomorrow. And they may or may not have it for you before we leave. But if you ask them about it before the summer, at least they're thinking about it. And some of them may have time to whip something together for you, right? But you want to start thinking about who those teachers are that you should ask for letters of recommendations from. So some of those teachers could be ones that you've had a couple of times and they know you well. Some of them could be a teacher whose class you didn't do so well in at the beginning, but then later as you progress through the semester, you really start to do better and have some wins in their classes, right? Those are the people that you want to think about. Sometimes you say, I want to ask Miss Mitchell for a letter of recommendation. Miss Mitchell, can you write me a letter of recommendation? Now, some kids, I know them. I see them in the hallway every day. I wave. We say little cute stuff. And that's all I know about them, right? So I like them, but I don't know a lot about them, right? And then there's some students that I know very well because either they're in Upward Bound with me or they've gone to some programs or they've come to my office and we've talked and I've seen them a lot and gotten to know them from field trips or things like that. So you want to start making sure that those individuals know you, okay? You also want to begin your common application profile, and we'll talk a little bit about that tonight. The common application out of everything on this list is the most important thing because it does take a little bit of time to fill it out. So at least what I would like for you to have done before we get back in the fall is to have your common application done, right? You still might be working on the essays, but at least you've gone in there, you've created the account, you've answered all the questions in there. And how the common application works is kind of one big application that you can use and you can apply to up to 20 schools. Now, of course, we don't want you to apply to 20, but some of you may do that. But you fill out the application one time and then you add colleges to the list and you can send all of the colleges applications from that particular one application. The only thing different is that some colleges may have extra supplements that you have to send in. And so a supplement is maybe some additional questions that are, 100 words or 250 words outside of the essay, right? So you want to have that finished. If you get that finished and you're still working on the essay, then you can bring the essay to teachers when we come back and they can proofread them for you. Because most students get stuck on the essay and that's what holds them up. So we always have a few students every single year that do that all over the summer. And they're pretty much done with all their applications by the end of September or the beginning of October. So I'm not trying to ruin your summer. I'm not asking you to do work all summer. Just do little bits and pieces as you go and try to get that done because senior year, you have so many things to do, right? And so this is one big thing that you want to get off your plate. And the other reason why you want to go ahead and start doing that common application is because some of the schools, again, have different supplements. So you want to put those schools on your list, on your Common App, because then you'll be able to see which schools want what. And you can kind of build yourself a little spreadsheet and lay those things out so that you can see what you want to do. A lot of times people will open up an application for a scholarship or for an application like a couple of days before it's due, and then they see all this stuff that needs to be done. So I'm just asking you to open it. You don't even have to do anything right away. Just open it, look in there and see what needs to be done, okay? The next thing you want to do is if you have not especially, go ahead and register for a fall ACT or SAT. It's a little bit too late to register for the June SAT because that's coming up this weekend and you're already on standby, which costs too much money, so I wouldn't do it if I were you. But I believe there is a July ACT, and then there's an August and an October SAT. So definitely take the SAT or the ACT, even if you think you're not a good test taker. Now, we know that a lot of the schools are still test optional, but some of them are, starting to require that test. But now you can take the test with less stress, okay? We'll talk about that a little bit later too. And if you're able to, do some virtual tours at school, do some in-person tours or open houses that colleges may have just to get a feel for certain campuses. The Schoology or local scholarship updates, you don't have to fool around with that at all right now. And then also join our Instagram and Facebook social pages. I will not really post too much over the summer, but during the school year, I definitely post a lot, okay? So before I hit the view school profile part, I know I said a lot. Does anyone have any questions that you want to drop in the chat about what's on this page? And while I'm waiting for any questions, if you decide to take the SAT, do not send your scores anywhere. All of you guys pretty much will be eligible for fee waivers. And if you're using a fee waiver, there is no time limit or clock on sending out the scores. So you want to hold on to that score, kind of look to see which each individual school wants you to have. And if you want to have a conversation with me or Gear Up, we'll definitely talk more about that in our fall workshop of how to decide which score you're going to send. All right. But for right now, if you've taken this test recently, you're getting ready to take it, this month, don't send that score anywhere, okay? All right, so I see some things in the chat here, so let me take a look real quick. Could I repeat what you said again about letters of recommendations? So your letters of recommendations, you're gonna ask people that you know you well, that can write something about you of significance, meaning that they've known you for a couple of years, that they've had you in a class or two. Maybe it's your football coach, or maybe it's your golf coach. Maybe it's a teacher whose class you didn't do so well in the beginning, but you found your way and you made some really great progress in that person's class, right? Those are the people that you want to ask. If you're thinking about majoring in something that's science related, you might want to ask a science teacher or a math teacher to write the recommendation for you. Because basically when a person writes a letter of recommendation for you, they're giving the reader a glimpse into who you are. So they're writing a narrative for you, about you, actually. You know, so you want to make sure that you really put some thought into who you're going to ask. Now, some schools don't require letters of recommendations. Some may ask for 3 or 5. So I would suggest that you get a minimum of 3 letters of recommendations. If you're applying to some of those schools that are more selective, highly selective schools where their acceptance rate may be like 25% or 40% or something like that, some of them may accept up to 5. But number 3 is the magic number for those letters of recommendations, okay? And whoever asked that question, if you can just drop in the chat and let me know if I answered your question correctly. All right. The next question in the chat says, what are essay prompts? So essay prompts, prompt is a fancy word for question. We always have to make things so complicated and give things extra names. A prompt is a question. So when you go on the Common Application, and I'll just go there now, I just want to make sure I don't get lost. All right. So here's the page. Here is the site for the Common Application. Let me make sure I can make this a little wide for you guys. All right. So when you go on the Common Application, you see here that you have more than 1,000 colleges on the Common Application. They're all different types of schools. So let's just say we're going to type in Temple, because I know Temple should be on here. Temple University. You got Manor College, Temple University, Japan. So you click on here and it gives you some information, and then you can go in and actually apply to Temple on this particular site, okay? So students would need to put together a username and a password, okay? Now, I'm gonna put this in the chat for you. For the students who went to my senior year prep for juniors program that we had, you already have this information, but I'm just gonna put this in here for you again. So you're gonna go to the Common App, you're gonna go to Apply to College, and right here is a first year application guide. So I'm gonna take this link and put this in the chat for you, just so you'll have it. So this particular page will tell you everything that you need to know to get started on the Common App. There are a couple of video tutorials on here, and it gives you all the directions of what you need to have, okay? And so just by me scrolling, this is the main reason why I want you to go ahead and get started on this now. Now, before I move any further on the Common App, you see where it says account rollover. They roll over their account every summer, like the first week of August. So just make sure that you filled out just your profile information, but don't put any essays in here at all, because they're going to get wiped out when they do the rollover. And also, if you end up asking, don't ask any teachers for any letters of recommendations to send to you until after August, after they do this rollover, because it will knock those out too. But whatever you put in your regular profile, that will stay in the account, okay? So it just has you do all of these things, okay? And again, this is why I want you to go in and do just little bits and pieces at a time. Okay. Now, the question was asked me about the essay prompts. So the essay prompts are also here. Okay. And they also have a mobile app, so you might want to download the mobile app. Okay. First year essay prompts. So these are the 7 questions or essay prompts that will be on the Common App. They change the questions every 2 years, but they have already solidified what's going to be, what the essay questions are going to be for this particular year. And number 7 is always the same: share an essay on any topic. So the Common App, the schools used to tell you which essay they wanted you to write. But the point of the Common App was to make life easier for us. And they, again, made this complicated. So what the trend that we've been seeing for the last 2 or 3 years is that the colleges will pretty much let you select what essay prompt or question you want to do. And that way you can use that same essay prompt for every school, okay? So you might want to make sure that, especially if you were in an English class that had you do some essay prompts or personal statements and things like that, maybe look to see which of these kind of connect with the personal statement that you had to do, or look to see which one, you know, you're interested in doing. And some of you are saying, I'm not interested in doing any of these because I'm not interested in doing any essay. I feel you on that one. All right, but you got to pick one. Okay. All right. So again, just go here for your first year application guide. And I think I actually recorded the session that we did on the Common App. So I'm going to look in my archives. And when I send this information out to you guys, I'll also send that video out too. I don't think I've posted that one yet from our conversation with the students. Okay. All right. Going back to the chat. Essay prompts, should you take both the ACT and the SAT? It really depends on the student. They do have some practice SATs and practice ACTs online that you can take, and you can take both of them and see which one that feels better for you. And then you can take that particular test once or twice. The ACT has English, math, and some history on it. I believe history and science. And then the ACT has math and reading and some essay that's kind of connected into the answer. They took out the big essay section, but they kind of combined it with the verbal section. The ACT, from what people say and from what I've seen, they kind of ask you more questions specific to what you learned in school, where the SAT is a pretty generic test, or they call it a reasoning test, and it's kind of based off of some inferences. So again, take the practice test for one and the other. We'll give you fee waivers for both, and then whichever one you felt most comfortable with, that's the one that you want to take second. But the majority, if not the huge majority of the schools, do take both tests. Okay. If you take these tests multiple times, can you mix and match the test scores for the highest math and English score? So I'm going to say yes, but no sometimes. Most schools will let you pick and choose your high score and your low score, but some schools, especially if you're going to do some schools will make you give your highest test administration. So that's the other reason why you guys want to do some research and see what schools are going to be on your final list, to see what they want for those things. With the ACT, they have that test split up into a bunch of different categories. So sometimes they'll let you mix and match that one and retake the whole test, or you can retest in a certain section. So you guys will get 2 fee waivers for the SAT and 4 waivers for the ACT. So the SAT, when we give you that waiver, it'll cover both tests. For the ACT, you're going to have to ask us for a waiver for each test. Okay. But again, even if you're not a good test taker, I'm not a good test taker, just take it anyway, just so you'll have it, because there may be some schools that don't require the test for you to get into the school, but they are going to require the score if you're trying to get one of the more higher merit scholarships. So just keep that in mind. Okay. Will the prompts update? No, the prompts that are there are the prompts that are going to be there. Can you save your work on the Common App and come back to it? Absolutely. So you can save it as you go. But again, when you are working on that Common App over the summer, do not leave any essays in there, and do not leave any teacher recommendations in there, because they will wipe out when they roll the system over. Okay. If you get to choose for many of the colleges, can you use the same essay for different schools? Absolutely. However, it's just like if you're dating. I don't know if we're supposed to talk about dating, but you know, some people aren't that loyal and they call people the wrong name. We don't want to do that for schools either, right? So we want to make sure that if you are going to use the same essay and you're talking about how great Haverford College is, when you send it to Westchester, you want to take Haverford out and you want to talk about how amazing Westchester is. All right. So sometimes people don't even put the names of the school in there, but you just have to be careful. They don't really have a way that they're going behind you checking to see what you sent where. You just want to make sure that there's no name of other schools in there and that you answer the question that they ask you. All right. Yes, I have real conversations. This is how I talk to the students. Students who have met me before, talk to me. This is how I talk to you guys in real life. Put yes in the chat because I know it's yes. All right. All right. So now I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint here so I can make sure we get through everything. All right. So now I want to take you and show you something that nobody ever shows you. So everybody wants to figure out, like, how are they choosing me? What are in the back of college's mind when they evaluate us? And I don't want to tell anybody else where I'm applying because that's my competition. And to be honest, your classmates are not your competition. The school is your competition, okay? So this school profile, and I'll drop this in the chat for you, is something that most people don't even know exists. So this school profile is something that colleges ask us for so that they can learn about our school, okay? So this is on my school website, and so I just gave you the link for the website. You can just go to whatever tab that you want to find information. But when colleges want to know about our school, they're going to look at this school profile, okay? Let's see if I can make it a little bit bigger. Okay. So it gives them some basic information about our school, you know, where it's located, how old the school is, what our demographics are as far as our economic demographics, our racial demographics, who our administrators are here, and information about what we did during COVID, right? So I know that last year's class, this current class is the last COVID class that we had in high school. So in most cases, this COVID section is going to disappear because even though you guys had COVID too, I believe you guys had COVID in middle school. So we're probably going to take out that COVID section. They want to know about our curriculum. What kind of classes do we offer? We offer AP classes, weighted honors classes, because believe it or not, there are some schools that don't have AP or don't have weighted honors classes. They want to see a copy of our program of studies. Here's the website. They can go there. So here's a whole bunch of things. A sample of colleges that students were accepted to in 2023. Okay. So last year we had a student that was accepted to 7 Ivies and waitlisted at Harvard last year. All right. Special programming that we have here. Tech School, TRIO, we're talking about Gear Up, Upward Bound, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Standardized testing. But this is what they are going to look for right here. They want to know about our grading scale. How many credits you guys need to graduate? What's the highest academic level you can get? How we do grading. So we have A pluses, A's, A minuses. But this right here is how you are being compared. So they're looking to see on your transcript, and what your transcript is a big report card that has a summary of everything that you took in high school. If you had any classes in middle school, like any math classes or world language, that's going to be on your transcript. But they're going to look on your transcript, and your transcript has the final grade in every class. they're going to look, especially if you are applying to some of those schools that are selective, highly selective, how many AP classes and weighted classes we offer, and how many you've taken advantage of. So of course, they are not expecting you to have taken all of these classes, or not even half of them, because it's impossible. But if you are trying to apply to one of the more advanced schools, or you're trying to get one of the presidential scholarships that covers all of your room and board, if they see that you've only taken 2 honors classes, but you could have taken about maybe 8 or 6, you know, those are the things that they're looking at. They're looking to see what you have taken advantage of. There may be some students that have taken a dual enrollment class at a local college. They're going to look at that as well. So this is something that they asked me for, okay? This is something that they want to see, okay? All right, let me see if there's anything in the chat, okay? So definitely make sure that you take a look at that school profile whenever you get a chance, okay? All right. All right, some summer FYI, so that people won't get mad at me because you're on vacation, and I'm gonna tell you a big secret. Ms. Gallagher and I, we're on vacation as well, okay? So, some colleges, because they are thirsty now, that's a whole nother conversation we're gonna have later if we have time at the end. Somebody remind me to talk to you guys about that. Some of these colleges 2 years ago started opening up their applications in the summertime, right? Because the competition is stiff. So some people are going to start opening their applications in July, okay? They're opening the application in July. Please don't get nervous, don't get antsy and think that it's due right then. It's not, it's just open. So if you want to go in and check it out, you can, okay? You also may receive emails from colleges stating that you have been accepted to their college, despite the fact that you did not do an application for that particular school. And you are going to say, this is scammy because I didn't apply to this school. But actually, what they started doing last year, there's a website called niche.com and another website that maybe you guys did a profile on, or they're connected to that school. Colleges now, what they're doing, if you have done a profile like on a scholarship site or niche.com, and you on your profile have put some items there that they're looking for in students, and it looks like you meet the criteria for their school, they've been sending out real acceptance letters, even though you didn't apply. So you're going to look at it. You can email them and ask them where they got your information from, or is this real? You can, and if you don't believe that the link that they're sending you is legit, you can just email the admissions office at that particular school and look for any admissions officer and email them and ask them, are you on their list? And so what they want to do, if you decide you want to do some research on that particular school and you like what you see, then you can accept their acceptance, if you can say it like that. And then they're going to ask you on the back end for your counselor to send a transcript and some other things. Now, just because you replied and said that you're going to take their acceptance, it doesn't mean that you have to go there. It doesn't commit you to anything, okay? And the reason why some of the colleges are doing that now, and I'm going to try to keep this as short as possible because I love talking about this, but in 2025, they projected something called the enrollment cliff. Because when we had the recession back in 2007, 2008, there were less children being born because people can't afford to take care of all these kids, even before that, but definitely during that recession. So those recession babies are you guys and the class right behind you. So what's going to happen is after your class, the numbers for high school graduates is going to start going down across the country, but mostly on our side of the country in the Northeast, more particular in Caucasian households. I'm just telling you what the data says, okay? So now you've been seeing on the news that maybe some schools have been closing, more schools have been merging. If you go on the highways or if you look at billboards, you'll start to see that a lot of those billboards for colleges have older people that look my age on there, or maybe in their late 20s and 30s, because they're stepping up their recruitment because they know that they have to do what they need to do to protect their numbers so that they won't close and they don't have to merge. Now, you probably heard that some schools in Pennsylvania, some of the state schools merged, and they're not saying it, but that's one of the reasons why they merged, because they're trying to share resources. So now these colleges are trying to be more creative and find ways to connect to students that are not naturally connected to them, okay? So that's why you're gonna start getting some mail from these colleges, okay? Now, the third one, this is the one that everybody gets angry with me about. But again, if you guys are on vacation, I'm on vacation too. We will not be sending out any transcripts to any colleges until the 3rd week of September. So if you guys can drop in the chat, why do you think we're not sending out any transcripts until the 3rd week of September, besides the fact that we're on vacation? Why do you think? All right, so early action, early decision. No, not that one. But close. Summer school, that's part of it. Some kids are in summer school, and so their transcript is not going to be correct until summer school is over. Okay. Somebody also put in until final grades are submitted. Absolutely. So we're looking for final grades for this year, even though they'll be in a couple of weeks. So final grades can be submitted for spring or summer. Yes, absolutely. Or verification. Absolutely. But the main reason that we're not sending any transcripts out until the 3rd week of September is because most of the colleges want to see your roster for senior year. And what are you guys doing the first 2 weeks of school that drives us crazy? What are you guys doing the first 2 weeks of school? Drop that in the chat for me. What are you guys doing? Yes, switching these classes every day, every period, right? So you guys are switching classes, moving things around, changing your classes, all that kind of stuff. And so we can't keep sending transcripts every single day. So we wait until they cut off the schedule changes. That usually happens at the end of the 2nd or 3rd week of school. Then we have them kind of run a report, make sure everything is correct, do a triple check just to make sure things are in order. And then when we have that done, then we send that out. And so we stick together like the Avengers, okay? None of us will send it out, because once we send out a transcript for one person, we have to send it out for everybody else, okay? So what you can do, and what I was highly recommended you do, and I'm going to send out an email to the juniors tomorrow, is to go into Infinite Campus on your phone or on your computer and take a screenshot of your transcript, because it's already there for this year. Your grade point average that you have for right now, but that don't use your grade point average. That's not going to be accurate. You want to go ahead and you can see the class that you have for 9th grade, 10th grade, and whatever first semester grades you have. So as soon as the school year ends and the teachers verify that information, go ahead and take a screenshot of that. So how you get to that is you go to your Infinite Campus, then you're going to look on the drop down. You're going to click the Documents tab, Documents. And then when you click Documents, you're going to see Official Transcript. So you want to go ahead and screenshot that. So try to make sure that you have that screenshot by, let's say, June the 10th, so you can have it. Now, I will be working some hours over the summer for Gear Up. So if you email me and you can, because what's going to happen is they're going to close out and freeze Infinite Campus so that you guys can't go in there and see your schedule, and so you won't have access to it. So if you ask me to send you a copy of your transcript, I'll send it to you, but we're not sending it to any colleges because of what I just told you, okay? But if you go ahead and take a screenshot, around June 10th, you'll have everything that you need to put on your applications. Okay. All right. I spelled Gear Up wrong. Also, again, I will be available for you guys in July and August via Zoom on the Calendly link to answer any questions or sit with you guys and meet. So Gear Up will be sending that link out a little bit later, but we're going to use June for the seniors. Okay. And lastly, before we get into the meat of our conversation, I know I've been all over the place, but I've just been answering the questions that are in the chat. I need you guys to enjoy your summer, right? As much as I've been talking to you about doing little bits and pieces, please enjoy your summer. Because what I love and hate about the class of 2025 is that y'all do too much. And I love it because you guys are really energetic, you're really enthusiastic, and you're involved in a lot of things. But then on the flip side, I see how much burnout your class has more than any class that I have ever seen. And I know a lot of it has to do with COVID. You couldn't do anything for a year and a half. And once you can do stuff, you're involved in everything. But I want to make sure that you enjoy your summer, but that you do enough over the summer so that you can continue to enjoy that senior year. All right. So before I move on to actually the real information I want to talk to you guys about, does anyone have any questions? You can drop them in the chat and I'll take a look here. All right. All right. So let's go. The application process. All right. So we looked at our school profile, right? And this is what drives everything when colleges are looking at you. They're looking at your grade point average or your GPA. Now they will take your grade point average information and they're going to put it in their system and convert it to their system because every school does grades differently. Okay. Everyone does their grades differently. Some people do A's, B's, C's, D's, F's. Some people do percentages. Some people have all kinds of different things going on. So they will convert your grades. Okay. They're going to look at the rigor of your courses versus what they see on that school profile that I showed you. So they want to look to see, have you taken any weighted honors classes? Have you taken any AP classes? Have you taken, if you said that you're going to major in art, have you taken a few art classes? Have you taken studio art? You know, what kind of extracurricular activities you're engaged in? Meaning, are you doing any sports? Are you doing any clubs? Do you work? For those of you who have to babysit, that's now a section that you can put on your application. You cannot tell your mother that is on this webinar that you're not going to pick up Junior from school because you have soccer practice. You might be sitting on the porch for a little while, right? Might get dark and you're still sitting on that porch so that you can think about what you just said, right? So schools recognize that everybody cannot do extracurricular activities, okay? They also want to look at your essay, which we talked about the importance of that essay and editing your essay, your letters of recommendation, and your test scores, all right? So those are the core things that they will be talking about. So on your transcript, I'm looking at a question in the chat. Right now, we have your weighted GPA on your transcript. But with Infinite Campus, we've already sent some notices to our IT department to see if they can update the transcript for your class to have the weighted and the unweighted GPA on the transcript, just so you'll have it. But worst case scenario, if they don't put it on there this year and you need it, we know how to do it by hand and we can convert it for you by hand. It takes about 5 minutes and we can do that for you. Okay. All right. We talked about making sure that you make yourself known to us, to Gear Up, to me, to your counselors, to your teachers, so that we know who you are. Again, that will help us write letters of recommendations for you. Sometimes people will ask us to recommend students for scholarships and programs. And so instead of us having to look through a list of 500 students, sometimes we just think of people that we know that fit that profile. We'll try to go look, but sometimes we don't have time to do that. So you just want to make sure that we know who you are. Make sure you check your email, especially your senior year. There's a lot of information in there, okay? All right. So when you guys are thinking about putting together your college list, and we're going back to that college list, you want to think about the acronym SLAM. Stands for social, location, academics, and money. So those are the 4 things that you really want to pay attention to and make sure that, you know, you have those things on your list when you're looking for schools, okay? So we're looking at schools. Why are the schools that you have on your list? Because we have seen some crazy reasons that students have schools on the list. Some people are name brand shopping. Well, I think I want to apply to Harvard, or I want to apply to this school, that school, because it's prestigious, because it's an Ivy. Well, why do you want to apply there? I don't know, because I just want to see if I can get in. All right. You hear about the parties or their homecomings and how fun they are. Your friends are there. Your bae is there. The school doesn't have your major. Your grades and SAT scores are nowhere close to what they're looking for. These are some reasons to not have a school on the list. And we can't tell you how many times that we fight with students about the fact that wherever it is that they're applying is not connected to the reasons that they told us, right? So you want to make sure that when you are looking at a list, that your grades and GPA are in the range of last year's class. All right. So when we come back in the fall, we'll teach you guys how to research that. Okay. And it might be in that video that we did for senior year prep for junior. So again, I'll make sure I put that in there. They have your major. Some of you may be undecided because you don't know what your major is, and that's okay. But some of you need to have some alternates, because what they're saying is that before, people would change their major 1 to 3 times, but now post-COVID, from what I'm hearing, people are changing their major 3 to 5 times, all right? So you also want to look to see what 3 or 4 things you're interested in, and try to ensure that the school that you're looking at has all of those majors if you decide to change your mind, okay? And so you want to make sure that you've had some touches at those particular schools, that you've done a virtual tour, that you visited them at a college fair, that you actually went to their college, right, to visit, or you did a webinar, that you've had different angles, that you've maybe gone on Instagram or YouTube, right? Different ways to kind of look to see what that school has going on. And so you see all these other things here, okay? And a lot of times you'll go on campus and it just feels right to you. But can I tell you a secret? I'm going to tell you a secret. In most cases, there's no such thing as the perfect school. For some people, they may have known about a school when they were little. They've been there forever. They've been there a lot of times, and that's it for them. But there are going to be 2 or 3 schools that might be that perfect school. Just think about when you're shopping for prom, or you're shopping for homecoming, and you're looking for that outfit that you want to wear. You may find 3 different outfits that are perfect for you, but you can only pick one. And all of them are going to be great, right? So look at college the same way. Okay. Now, when you guys are looking at your college list, you want to make sure again that you have 6 to 12 schools on your list. Okay. So you want to have 1 to 2 reach schools on your list. Those are 2 schools that you don't meet the criteria, but it's reasonable, right? So they're your top choices, but you're less likely to be accepted. But who knows, right? Now, we're not talking about the school is looking for a 3.5 grade point average and you have a 2.0. That's not a reach school, okay? Right? We don't want to do that. That's not a reach school. But if they're asking for a 3.5 and you have a 3.7 or 3.8, but you have a lot of extracurricular activities, your essay is really good, shoot your shot, right? 2 to 4 target schools. Those are schools that match your needs and your wishes. You would be happy to attend. You meet the criteria that they're looking for, but you just don't know, you know, what types of students they're looking for. But on paper, you look like you match. And then you want 1 to 3 safety schools based off of your grades, your GPA, and some other things that you far exceed what they are looking for, right? And so you can look at some options there. But what I also ask you guys to do, and this is one of the most important things that I'm going to tell you, this will keep you from getting your heart broken in May when you have to drop that deposit. Okay? Please make sure that you put at least 2 schools on your list that you can commute to, meaning that you're not going to stay on campus, but you will drive there or take the regional rail or whatever there. Because sometimes when you guys get your financial aid packages back from the school, and we'll talk about this in the next presentation in detail, When you start doing the math, you may owe about $15,000, $17,000. That's your gap. So after you do all the math from all your scholarships and everything, you still may owe $15,000. However, that's about how much room and board costs now, or housing and meals to stay on campus is between $12,000 and $20,000, depending on where the school is. So if you just take off your housing and your meals and commute, if that's the school that you really want to go to, then you can make that choice. So I know that everybody wants to stay on campus, but the price of college is astronomical in some cases, in a lot of cases, actually. Some of you guys may get some really great financial aid packages to every school. Some of you might not get any great packages to any school, and some of them, it might be enough for you to do some things. But I want you to at least put 2 schools on it that you can commute to. So if you have to make that decision, then you can make it, because some students don't listen. And then at the end, they're scrambling, trying to add schools to that list, okay? All right. So I'm just giving you some samples of how much schools cost. So if you're going to a community college, if you're going to Montgomery County Community College, that's the price that we have here. Probably has gone up just a little bit, but it costs about $6,200, $6,500 a year for the tuition. Tuition means how much it costs to educate you at that particular school, okay? All right. You can go to Northampton if you want to. You can go to Philadelphia Community College if you want to, but please be mindful that you're going to have to pay the out-of-county rate if you want to go to Philadelphia, and you're going to have to take their regional rail or drive. And if you go to Northampton, you're going to have to pay the out-of-county rate, and you're going to have to stay on campus, and that's going to be really expensive. Kind of defeats the whole purpose of you going to a community college to save money if you're going to spend all that money going there, okay? You have some trade and technical schools that you may decide to attend. You have your Thaddeus Stevens, you have your Empire Beauty Schools. And so some of that tuition can be $13,000. One of the big secrets about Thaddeus Stevens, which is a technical school, is if you are eligible for a Pell Grant, I heard that you pretty much can get in there for free. We can check that out. You have your public, your state-related, and your private schools, okay? So your public schools, you have your Kutztowns, your IUPs, your Cheneys, your Westchester. They have a lower tuition rate, and they also have a lower GPA rate, because they're trying to, make more access for everyone, okay? But you see here that the average cost to stay on campus is going to be an average of $23,000, but it might be more realistic for 25, 26, depending on which school you're looking at. Your state-related colleges, there's 4. There's Temple, Lincoln, Penn State, University of Pitt. That cost to stay on campus is going to be between $25,000 and $35,000. And again, these are sticker prices. This is before we see how much federal aid you're eligible for, any scholarships that they may give you. And then a lot of these private colleges are just really outrageous now. They can go anywhere from $35,000 to $80,000 to stay on campus. What I will say to you is that what I don't want you to do is to start looking at prices of schools, saying that you can't afford to go to those schools and taking them off your list. Don't do that. Keep them on the list, because sometimes you guys get scholarships from that school because of your grades and some other things. And sometimes it might be more affordable for you to go to the private school versus going to that public school. All right. So if it fits everything that you're looking for, keep it on the list. Okay. Please keep it on the list. And then you have until May 1st to make a decision where you're going to go. All right. So as long as you do your applications early, you do your financial aid, as soon as it opens, you'll get all of the information that you need about a month or 2 before you have to make that decision. Crossing your fingers, it's going to be nowhere close to the travesty we're having this year with financial aid, nowhere close, but you'll still have some time to make that decision. Okay, somebody put in the chat, some of them give you aid, but you have to live on campus and this costs $15,000. Yeah, you can pick and choose if you're going to live on campus, but they do usually give you like a parameter of miles and things like that. Okay. All right. I'm going to skip that. And this is the last slide, and then I'm just gonna see if we want to take a little break, okay? Some of you guys are playing sports. You're trying to decide if you want to do Division I, Division II, or Division III sports, okay? So please make sure that you have gone onto the NCAA Eligibility Center and filled out your application for amateurism competition, okay? So you have to fill out your profile first, and then you're going to go on and fill out the actual application. We will give you a fee waiver. So once you're done, they're going to ask you, are you eligible for a fee waiver? You're going to click yes. You're going to email me and email me your entire number. It might be 9 or 10 digits. And I'll put your fee waiver in there, and I'll put a transcript in there for you. So especially if you're thinking about playing Division I or Division II schools, okay? Division I or Division II schools, you want to do that. And you want to go ahead and do that now. Now, some of you are being scouted. So I'm going to give you a little piece of tea that I found out yesterday, because I've kind of been following Deion Sanders with the Colorado Buffs and all this kind of stuff, if you follow football. And now my YouTube channel has a whole bunch of football podcasts in there. So for those of you, if you are like a junior and you're being scouted really hard by a school, especially if you play football or basketball, you might want to go ahead and do your commitments in junior year, because they have something called a transfer portal that students can go in and transfer from one school to another. And what the trend is now is that a lot of schools are taking more current college students, and they're taking less and less high school students. So if you see that you're being recruited heavily as a junior, you might want to take a look at that school and go ahead and make a commitment if you think it's a good match, so that you can go ahead and get that scholarship. Because if you wait until senior year, sometimes that scholarship might not be there anymore for you, okay? But we can have a conversation about that. You definitely want to talk to your coach, okay? So don't do exactly what I said. Just keep that in mind as you're making some considerations, okay? All right. So it is 7:37. So if you guys can drop in the chat for me, and I'll take the majority. If you guys want to take a 5-minute break, 5 or 10-minute break, or if you want me to keep going. Okay, so drop that in the chat for me, please. Okay. Okay. All right. So most of you are saying keep going, and 2 people are asking for a break. So let's do this. We're going to take a 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5-minute break, so people can go to the bathroom or get some water or something. So 5 minutes. So we're coming back at 7, what is it? 7:42. Okay. 7:42. Okay. So 7:42, we'll come back. so we're gonna go ahead and start back. And I'll go ahead and start that recording again. Oh, it's been recording the whole time. Okay. All right. This is so funny because it stopped right where I wanted it to stop. Okay. So again, just make sure for you guys, if you're going to do that eligibility center, especially if you want to do D1, D2, let me know ASAP and go ahead and fill that application out. Okay. And what the NCAA, they want you to have a 2.3 GPA or grade point average on their scale. So they're going to take your transcript and they're going to recompute all the grades on their scale. So if you have most of your good grades in electives, electives don't go on there. They take their world languages and they take all the core subjects that are approved on their site. Okay, so just keep that in mind. All right. Now, let's talk about some money. So if you want me to talk about the money, let's say secure the bag. So if you can drop secure the bag in the chat, let's talk about the money, secure the bag, whatever money related item you want to drop in that chat. So I can see if everybody's back from the break. All right, so we got to secure the bag, secure the bag. All right. So these are some little secrets for next year's FAFSA. So what I have been hearing is that for next year, well, of course, they're going to use your 2023 tax return on your FAFSA. So this year they use 2022, next year they use 2023. Now, in the past, what they've allowed you to do if you did not have your tax return done is that they allowed you to go into the FAFSA and type in the information. From what I'm hearing is that that feature will no longer be available and that you have to have a finished tax return to do your FAFSA. Because what happens is they pull in that information from the IRS. So please make sure if you got an extension, like I got an extension this year, to make sure that you finish your extension and get your taxes for 2023 done. Because that's what I'm hearing for next year. What I'm also hearing for next year is that people expect FAFSA to be late again next year. Before you get upset stomach, heartburn, diarrhea, whatever that commercial says on television, it's not going to be January late. It might be November late or early December late. And the reason why they're saying that they think it's going to be late is because right now, they're usually having conversations about what's going to happen with next year's FAFSA right now. They're still trying to fix this year's FAFSA right now, okay? So from what I've been hearing on the podcast and just different things that I've been reading, they're not even having discussions about that, okay? So I'm not trying to put fear. I don't think it's going to be anything as late as this year, but I'm not quite confident that it's going to be October 1st, all right? But still have those taxes done, okay? The third thing is if you want to go ahead and create what's called your FSA ID, or your FSA ID, which is called your Federal Student Aid ID, just to set up your account. If you want to go ahead in there now, you can go ahead and do that. You're just setting up a profile. That's it. We're not doing the FAFSA. We're just setting up the profile. So what's going to happen when you guys come in September, as we see you guys, we're going to have you go ahead and start creating your FSA IDs now. Okay? Just so you'll have them. Okay? All right. Now we're going to talk a little bit about how to save money. Some of this stuff I've talked to you about a little bit already. Okay? You want to diversify your school list. So we already talked to you guys about putting together 6 to 12 schools on your list, but you also want to put a mix of private, publics, and state related, because there are some students that only put private schools on their list. They only put Ivies or top tier colleges. And when I say top tier colleges, I mean colleges that have a very low selection rate, okay? When you don't diversify your list, it means you might get stuck with a lot of colleges that have a huge gap of money that you owe, okay? So you want to make sure that you diversify. So when it's time to start looking at your financial aid letters that they're going to send out to you in the spring, you have a lot of options, okay? You might want to consider community college as an option. There is nothing wrong with going to a community college. It is an option. A lot of people started a community college, and I'm going to tell you right now, Dr. Khalid Moomin, who is the Secretary of Education of the Department of Education for Pennsylvania, he is the head chief there. Started out at a community college, then I think he went to Shippensburg, I believe, got a bachelor's there. Then he went to Penn State, got a master's degree, and then he got a PhD from University of Pennsylvania. And that's a great option for everybody. The kid that was number 10 in the class last year went to a community college. So it's up to you, and it is a family decision. For those of you who do have some really good grades, like a 3.2 or 3.5 or above, you might want to think about going into the honors program at the community college. And you may be able to go there for free. So that's an option for you, okay? You also want to apply for local scholarships. I cannot say that enough. There are a number of students that I put out these scholarships in the spring. For those of you who've been following me on Instagram, you've been seeing all of these scholarships that I've been posting, and it's like fighting kids to get them to apply. They like run for me because I start stalking people. I'm just trying to help you get some money, right? So those are the best kept secrets because you're competing against less people, because it's only for people in Pennsylvania and Montgomery County. There are a number of them that are specific just to Norristown. And there are some students that receive these scholarships simply because they're the only ones that have filled them out, okay? So you want to look at those. You also want to try to get some merit scholarships from the colleges. So when you get your financial aid letter from a college, you're going to have a bunch of things on there, okay? And I said I wasn't going to do this, but I'm actually going to do it. I'm going to show you guys some sample financial aid letters. How about that? I think I am. Stop sharing for a second so I can find these financial aid letters for you. Because I thought I had them open and they're not open. Okay, yes, they are. They are open. Here they go. Okay. All right, so you guys can see these financial aid letters from me, right? So I'm going to just show you some sample financial aid letters, okay? So these letters, and I've whited out all the students' information. They gave me permission to share. This is for a student that graduated last year, okay? So this was for Widener University, just so I can give you some perspective on the numbers that you should be expecting to see as far as the numbers that are coming from the colleges, okay? So this particular student, they received a federal Pell Grant. And so a federal Pell Grant is when you fill out your FAFSA application, they're going to look to see how much money you're eligible for from the federal government in the form of federal grants, state grants, and federal loans, okay? And then if you are a student that does well in school, the colleges will look at your financial aid application, and they may have some grant money that they can give you that has come from other sources to give you some additional money for grants. And then also just in general, regardless of what your income is, a lot of colleges will offer you merit scholarships from the school based off of your grades and extracurricular activities. So this particular student got $6,800 last year in federal grants. That was the maximum amount of money that the student could get in a grant, okay? They also received the full Pennsylvania State grant last year because of their FAFSA. But the student also is a great student. So they also received the presidential scholarship for $31,000. So y'all like, well, dang, if the presidential scholarship was $31,000, how much is the cost to go there? We'll get there in a second. The student also got a campus experience grant, this federal SEOG grant, which stands for Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant. Because of their family income, they qualify for some additional money of $1,000, a Widener grant of $10,500, and then a federal loan of $3,500. This comes from the FAFSA, and another $2,000 loan and federal work study. Federal work study means that the student has a job on campus, okay? So right now you're seeing that this student was awarded $63,000 in aid from the school and from the government. But I'm gonna add $2,000 back because a work study is a job on campus, which means you're not gonna get this money until later. And we'll go into things like this in more detail in the fall. But the cost of attendance to go to Widener last year, tuition, which means that's how much your education is, housing and meals, was $75,000 to go to Widener. Okay. So after they did the math, this student owed $13,000. Okay. $13,000. So we had to decide if the student was going to commute or stay on campus. So it's close enough to commute. So if the student decided to commute, then they wouldn't have a balance, okay? Because the housing was $9,500 and the meals was $7,100. Okay, I think that's numbers a little off. All right. The student also was accepted to Lincoln University, so their letter looks different too. So the cost of attendance at Lincoln University, when the student, and this is another reason here why I would like you guys to make sure when you get your financial aid letters to let me look at them, let Ms. Gallagher or someone in GEAR Up, because sometimes things are missing and we know what should be in here based off of what you received on your FAFSA report. So when we looked at this student's report, we saw that their state grant was missing. And yeah, for this one, their state grant was missing. So we had to email them to ask them to add that to the student's bill. Because if the student received a federal Pell Grant at that school, they should have received the full Pell Grant at every school, okay? So I think the tuition, room and board for this particular school was, tuition was $12,944 and the housing and meals was $10,796. So it's going to cost about $22,000 or $23,000 to stay on campus at this particular school. Okay. LaSalle, I like the way that they do their bill because they break down all the math, but it's expensive as well. To stay on campus at LaSalle, when we looked at this letter, the student's federal grant money was missing, their state grant money was missing, and the extra grant was missing. And that's because the student forgot to put this school, either they forgot to put the school on the letter or just was a mistake because they put the loans on here. So that's why we want you to have us look at these for you. But the cost of attendance at LaSalle last year was $51,000 for the tuition, housing, and meals. All right. So again, I don't want to scare you with these numbers, but I need you to know what these numbers are. But we're still moving forward and we're still applying to these schools because this student, after we ended up making all these phone calls and everything, they ended up going to be able to go to Cabrini for pretty much for free. And there was another school that it was almost for free after we went around it. But again, Cabrini closed, so they ended up going to another school, but they pretty much ended up going to that particular school for free, okay? Here's another school. This is a different student that went to Hofstra or was accepted to Hofstra last year. The tuition and fees and housing was $74,000 for Hofstra. Okay, so they broke down this bill and did all the math for the student, and they didn't really get a lot of aid from this school. And so after they did the math, they still owe $55,000. So this is another reason why we want you to get 6 to 12 schools, because I can't remember who this student was, but at another school, they got a really great package and the math worked out, or as the kids say, the math was mathing, okay? So these are some things that I want you guys to take into consideration to start, just paying attention to how much these things cost, but again, keeping it on your list just in case. Okay, all right. Any questions in the chat real quickly about the money part? We're almost at the end. And I'll just keep going and I'll look in the chat because you probably all passed out by now. Please don't pass out. I don't know if we can do virtual smelling salts and things like that. But again, I just want you to know what you're seeing as opposed to waiting to the end and pass out. This is how much this is. So now we're planning for these things, okay? You want to find out if the colleges that you are attending, your top choices, do something called scholarship displacement. I need you guys to write this down somewhere, scholarship displacement. And what that means is that there are some colleges that if you go out and get your own scholarship money and they've already given you some scholarship money, depending on what the rules are with that particular scholarship, sometimes they may take some of that money back. And so that's another reason why I want you to stay in contact with me, especially if you get some really big scholarships so that we can reach out and ask those questions. And I'm starting to compile a list, okay? But just keep that in mind. This says review each school's net price calculator. So every school has a net price calculator on their website so that you can do some research to see, how much you think you're going to get. To be honest, because the FAFSA stuff is still being updated, I don't think those net price calculators are accurate. You can go in there. I wouldn't go in there and look at them now, but maybe towards the end of the summer or in the fall, they should be pretty accurate, okay? You also want to make sure that you file your federal FAFSA, your state FIA, and then some private schools have something called a CSS profile or a college scholarship search profile. To do financial aid, even if you think you make too much money and you're probably not going to get any federal grant money, most likely you still will be eligible for federal loans. So even though nobody wants to take out a loan, it's better to get the federal loan than it is to get a bank loan. Okay, because the interest rate is going to be lower on it. And you have a lot of options to refinance, or you may have a president that may want to cancel your loans later. We don't know, right? So those are always going to be better. If you do have a school that has a CSS profile, it's only about 250 to 300 colleges that do that CSS profile. And usually those are due, if you're doing an early application, it's due in November or December. Or if you're doing a regular decision application, it'll be due in January or February, okay? You want to make sure that you review and compare all of your award letters from the school. So the award letter was those forms that I just showed you with all the numbers on it before you make a deposit. I say this every year, and there's always somebody that gets really excited that they got accepted to their first choice. And before they even get the financial aid award letter, they have dropped the non-refundable deposit. Sometimes it's $250, sometimes it's $500, and you're not going to get that money back. And sometimes those students, when we finally get to do the math is not mathing at all, right? And so you're not getting that money back. So please make sure that if you do all these things early as they're asking you to, and get your letters ahead of time, please see me, see Gear Up, so that we can go through those letters and, just kind of transcribe them for you and let you know what your best choices are. And then after that, that's your business, what you do, okay? You can also put in for appeals for your financial aid awards, but we'll talk about that in the fall. Decide how much loans you're going to accept. Most of this I've talked about already. Decide if you're going to stay on campus or commute. Also, please drop in the chat for me. If you are a student or a parent that your student is bugging you, or you guys are bugging your parents about going out of state because you want to get as far away from them as possible, nothing personal, but you just want to go far, far, far away out of Pennsylvania, please drop that in the chat for me. Because there are always those. Yep, so we have one out of state. Anyone else? Okay, so far I just see one. Okay, yep, see a couple. So just be mindful that when you go out of state, your PA state grant does not go with you. So that could be up to $5,000. So there are a couple of states, I think it's like West Virginia, Maryland, maybe DC, Vermont, I can't remember the other two, maybe Rhode Island, that will take our state grant, and they're in relationship with us, but they're only going to take $600. And then also remember that if you're going to an out-of-state public school, you're paying out-of-state tuition. Now, some of these schools are giving you extra scholarships because you're going out of state, but I just want you to be mindful of that. So I'm not saying don't go out of state, just be mindful that you're going to lose some money and maybe gain some money other places, okay? But you want to make sure, parents, that you start having some honest conversations with your student about how much money you can afford to spend towards college. It's a very uncomfortable conversation. We don't want to have this conversation because when I was a kid, if I asked my mom how much money she made, can you drop in the chat and tell me what my mom said? I'm an 80s kid. I'm a 70s kid. What do you think my mom said? Drop that in the chat. If I asked my mom or my dad how much money they made, what would they say? So I see a mind your biz, none of your business. This is in the chat. I'm just reading the chats, right? None of your business. And the comment that I always see is that we make enough, right? But when you guys are going and doing your FAFSA, if I can tell you a secret, your student can find out how much money you make once you fill out that FAFSA. It's in the report, right? So if that feels too uncomfortable, you might want to start talking about a budget and how much you think you can spend extra per month, and if you're willing to borrow any money outside of that per month. So we'll have a deeper conversation about that in our August session, but you need to have a real conversation because there are some students now, their parents have still not had those conversations with them about money. And that's why we have tissues on our desks. Because it's a lot of meltdowns that are going on right now, because now kids are finding out that some students are not able to go where they wanted to go because either parents didn't really have a clue or they just didn't want to talk about it. Okay. I'm just going to breeze through these because I'm pretty much done. We talked about the NCAA. FAFSA may or may not open October 1st. We talked about the PA State grant. Application deadlines, we're going to talk about this in more detail in our August session. Okay. But you have all these different types of deadlines that you have. You have something called early action, which means that you're applying early, like in November, December, sometimes October. You'll find out your decision early, but you don't have to make a commitment. Or you have an early decision, which means that you have an early deadline on November 1st, 15th, or December 1st. And if you get accepted early, you have to commit to that particular school, okay? We always say to students that have issues with income, that might not be the best choice for you, but we can do some research because they may have their financial aid set up that if you are a lower income student, you may qualify for a lot of aid, and they say it up front, so we'll look at that. And then some of you who are going into specialty programs like art, music, nursing, pre-med, when you may have to do some type of portfolio or some type of audition, or you may have an earlier deadline. That's the other reason why you want to start putting that list together so that you can see when those early dates are, okay? We would like you to have all of your applications done by Thanksgiving. So it's not written down anywhere, but that's the preferential date to do it by Thanksgiving. If you're planning on applying to Penn State, You definitely want to do that one by Thanksgiving. If you're trying to go to main campus, you probably want to have that done by November 1st. Okay. If you're going to main campus on at Penn State. Okay. And then once again, oh, and here are the dates. If you're the states, if you're trying to go out of state, we have a relationship with Delaware, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, and Ohio. But again, you're only going to get $600 from this state grant. And then once again, you have until May 1st to make a decision where you're going to go. But again, we're doing all these applications early so that you can find out and have plenty of time to process all of that information. I'm going to skip all of this because we're going to do this in the fall. I knew we weren't going to have time to do this. You guys want to make sure, preferably if the student can create a new email address for applications, or if parent and student can share just one application, one email address for applications so that you guys can keep track behind each other. We'll talk about this other stuff in the fall. And then lastly, if you came in a little bit later, these are our summer reminders. Again, we're not sending out any official transcripts to any colleges until the 3rd week of September. You may receive some emails from colleges saying that you've been accepted to those. It might not, most likely will not be a scam. It means that you went on niche.com or another website and they went in and did some pre-screening and did some selections. And make sure again that you screenshot a copy of your transcripts between now and June the 10th, because in the summertime, they will close Infinite Campus for scheduling purposes. They don't want you to see all these changes that they're making. And so that way you'll have a screenshot. I will send you a copy if you ask me for one, but I will not send it to any colleges. And again, Gear Up is going to send you guys a link this summer. I'll be available on some office hours in July and August to sit down and help you with any applications. All right. So now that I've totally stressed you out, I hope I haven't, but I want you to take a deep breath because we made it and we got you and we won't let you fail. So just like I tell the students in our senior prep for juniors, if y'all just do what we tell you to do, you'll be okay. And I hate to be this straightforward like that, but the rules are simple. You do this at this time, you do that at that time, and just ask us for help, okay? Don't be afraid to ask us for help. That's why we're here. So this can be as painless as possible for you, okay? All right, so we're at the end. So what questions do you guys have? Because I'm done with my presentation, but I'll stick around and answer every single question that you guys have. If you want to drop them in the chat, you can drop them in the chat. If you want to unmute yourself, you can unmute yourself. Okay. All right, thank you.
Ms. Mitchell, I had a question regarding niche.com.
Okay.
So should a student go on, is that like Common App?
No, it's kind of like a niche.com is a site where you can go on and you can get information about schools on there.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you know how some, oh, this is another thing. You guys heard of US News and World Reports, right?
Yeah.
So you can look at that list, but that list is very subjective, meaning that they get information from, they'll ask different colleges to fill out information about other colleges if they don't know a lot about that other college. They might not put that information. You know, and it's just all the different metrics that they use to put that list together. The people in my industry, we just don't, we think it's a waste of time to really go by that. But you can look at it just for schools just to see what people have at the top, I guess. But a lot of people focus on these Ivies, but there are a lot of top tier colleges or a lot of, you know, colleges that are public, that are private, that are really good schools. There's 4,000 schools across the country. But niche.com, they have a lot of information from students, student experiences and how they feel about certain schools, how they rate those schools, but they have a profile on there. And so when you fill out that particular profile, colleges will go through those profiles to see if your students' characteristics match students that they're types of students that they're looking for. and they'll send out information. So they use that to reach students that they normally won't naturally run into, you know?
Yeah.
So I definitely would encourage you to use Denise.com and go on there and, you know, fill it. I think they do have a little college search engine on there too.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. But you guys can use Naviance as a college search engine to put your list together. That's the main one. So you guys going on to ClassLink, and you're going to go in there and look for a teal green icon that says Naviance. And once you go in there, you're gonna look for the colleges tab, and then you're going to click college super match. So you can put a list together there. You can go on collegeboard.org. That's the site for the SAT. They have a really nice college search list on that one too. And then you also can use this site, which is one of my favorite sites, called College Navigator, where you can put a list together. I'm not crazy about the list in there, but you can do a lot of research on colleges in there on that list. And we'll talk about that a little bit more detail in the following. I mean, I could have talked about it today, but that would have been the whole presentation. Any other questions? I'll look down here in the chat. Okay. If a college has a higher requirement for a specific major within their school, will that be noted on the comment app? Like higher GPA or higher requirements, we were at a tour recently and the guy said that the school still hadn't made their SAT decision, but like the notice major will require it. All right. Since you asked that question, Ms. Carpenter, I'm getting ready to go into the weeds. So for those of you who are data nerds, this will be a really good site for you to use. So somebody give me the name of a school. Ms. Carpenter, if you, I don't know if you want to drop that name of the school in the chat or a different one, just give me a name of a school. Okay, so we're gonna type in Coastal Carolina Common Data Set. So I need you guys to write this down. Name of school, and then type Common Data Set. So Common Data Set is a website or a form that colleges can use to give us feedback about the class that they accepted last year or the year before. Most colleges use it. They have it on their website. It's hard to find it, but if you type it in like this, you can find it, okay? So I'm gonna go on here, Coastal Carolina Common Data Set, okay? 2023, 2024. Okay, now, every school doesn't have to submit these, but most schools, four-year schools do, from what I hear. This form will give you every piece of information that you want to know pretty much about the class that they accepted for the 23-24 school year. So that's the current class. You'll go in here and it has all the information about their PO boxes, their websites, all of this information, right? You guys want to scroll. It talks about how many students that they admitted, you know, how many women, how many men, how many were first degree seeking, master's degree, graduate school, all that kind of stuff. Ethnic codes. You want to skip all the way down to section C. Section C is where the data is that you guys want. And of course, look through all of this too. But if you skip to section C, this is where they start talking about who they admitted last year at this particular school. So it's saying that for the fall 2023 season, they had 7,780 men apply, 10,000 women apply, and 129 another gender. Okay. How many were admitted to the school? How many enrolled? How many of them were full-time students? How many of them were part-time students? So you see here, they don't really have a lot of part-time students. Okay. It's telling you how many students were in state and out of state. That's another thing I want to talk about very quickly. For those of you who plan on going to a school out of state, it is highly recommended that you do the application in October or November. Don't wait until January, February, even if the deadline is there, because there are a lot of schools, specifically the state colleges, that can only accept but so many students out of state, because they actually will get a fine if they accept a certain percentage of out of state over the allotment that they're supposed to have. So sometimes if you wait until February or January, even though you meet the whole criteria, you simply were rejected because they've already met their quota for the year. Okay. So again, if you're applying to a state out of school, do that early. All right. So it's telling you how many are in state, out of state, international. Okay. Keep going. They're telling you about the requirements. Sometimes they call these Carnegie credits, requirements that they want you to have from high school, which in most cases, we always pretty much meet the Carnegie units for that. Then they're telling you in here what's important to them. So what's very important for Coastal Carolina is the rigor of their school record. Their class rank is important, but not very important. Their GPA is very important. Letters of recommendations are considered. SAT scores are considered. All these other things down here, they'll tell you what's considered, not considered. Now you're getting down into the SATs and ACTs. Okay, they're telling you what tests they take, what percent submitted SAT scores and how many students that was, how many submitted ACT scores, how many students that was. Now you're getting to the juicy part. This is where we can nerd out right here, okay? Your SAT scores right here. These are the scores of the students that applied last year that submitted the scores to this particular school. So the average SAT composite score, which means that's the math and the verbal or evidence combined, was 1131 out of 1600. The ACT composite score, which means the total score, is a 23 out of a 36. And then you can just keep digging for more and more information. So again, this is the way you can really look to see how you match up and be strategic as you're going through your application. So this again, you're going to type in the name of the school and common data set. Okay, so you can look there. Of course, you can look on the other website called College Navigator that I told you about. Don't have it open on my browser. And you can look for some information here too. So if we type in Coastal, and this is a government site, so it's not going to give you any subjective information. This is all objective information. So we're looking up Coastal Carolina again, and this is going to give you data a different way. So it tells you the website, what kind of school it is, how many students they have there. 9,794 undergraduate students. So you always want to look when you're doing your research for undergrad, because that's what you guys are applying as undergrads. And you can skip here to the admissions, okay? And they can show you all of this other data that you need. So this is not a pretty site, but it gives you a lot of good information about how many people applied, how many were admitted for fall 2022. SAT scores are down here as well. All this information, all right? And you can just keep going and going and looking and looking and looking and looking at retention and graduation rates, all kinds of stuff, okay? So that's a really good site. All right, let's look and see what else is in the chat. What is meant by student-authored college application? Thank you, because I did skip over that. Student-authored application or essay means that your student actually wrote the essay. Because some people's parents, I'm not saying if anybody on here, I'm going to bring some tea, write their essays for their students or over-edit their essays. And we can read them, and colleges can read them, and see that the student really didn't write them. The student should be writing the essay, and then we should do some editing to kind of guide them in the right direction, or do some grammar, corrections like that. But we want to make sure that the student uses their voice and uses their tone in that essay. Sometimes people's parents will write and fill out the whole application for them. Let's let the kids do this, because a lot of times we keep doing things for them, we keep holding their hand, and then they don't learn how to do those things for themselves. When they go to these colleges, they're going to be considered adults. And so we want to make sure we start practicing. So some kids call me mean, or they say, well, Miss Mitchell didn't, because I'm not going to do something for them that I know that they can do for themselves. If there's a question that they have that they don't understand, I'll answer that. Or if it's something that I know they don't know how to do it, then I will help them do it. But we have to start treating them like young adults. So when they go to college, they have the confidence that they need. When they have to go to the admissions office, or to have to go to the Bursar's office, which is where they make payments, and they have the confidence to go in and talk to people and take care of their business. They're afraid to make phone calls in the office. They think I'm going to make the phone calls for them too. So I'll dial the number and turn the phone around, put it on speakerphone, and then I just sit there, and I'm just sitting there for more support, just like this. They have to learn how to start practicing talking to people on the phone. Okay. All right. So any other questions? And Ms. Carpenter, I think, did I answer your question? I think so. Yep. So you can come off mute, or you can drop it in chat, because again, we're done, but I'll sit here and answer every question that you have. Even if you want to hang around after other people have dropped off, that's totally fine. But I know sometimes we don't want to ask questions in front of other people. Okay, I think I got everything in the chat. Okay, if you transfer, will the college look at my high school GPA or my GPA before transferring? Yes, great question. All right, because we didn't really have time to cover this. This is something I usually do in a workshop later in the year. So can you, the student that wrote that in the chat, can you give me more specific information? Are you talking about going to a community college and transferring to a four-year school, or are you talking about going from one four-year school to another? Okay, so let me give y'all some tea. When they tell you guys to go to that, you have the option of going to a community college and transferring to a four-year school. It's usually not that cut and dry, okay? In order for you to, some schools will allow you to do a certain amount of credits, like 36 credits or 60 credits, before you can transfer to their particular school. So you want to look to see what their rules are as far as transferring to their particular school, okay? If you want to do the 2-year route and transfer, it's not as simple as doing 2 years, because sometimes people have to take what's called a remedial class. They try to create all these new fancy words. It's a remedial class, meaning that you're not ready to take the English, math, or science class that they want you to take. And so you have to take like a class to prep for that one. Those classes, the credits usually don't count towards your credit count when you're transferring from one school to another. But even if you have to go, and sometimes students have to take 2 or 3 of those particular classes. Sometimes you don't have to take any of those classes, but what you want to do is make sure that you take enough credits each semester to be able to graduate in that 2-year window. So you guys can take between, let's say, 12 to 21 credits to be considered a full-time student. So a lot of times for your first semester of community college or a four-year college, they may give you 12 credits or 15 credits just to see what you can handle. And then once you show that you can handle that amount, then you can do 15 or 18 credits. So that's why you want to meet with your advisor, which is a fancy word for guidance counselor. I used to meet with mine every semester just to make sure that we stayed on track, right? We didn't have all the fancy computers and things that we have now. So they had to print out my documents and I will hold on to them. But A lot of times, in order for you to get out on time with the 2-year degree, if you want to get your associate's degree before you transfer, associate's is a 2-year degree, you would need to go and do your 15, 18 credits each semester and do summer sessions and possibly some winter sessions so that you can finish your degree in 2 years if that's your plan. So some people, they suggest that you get your associate's degree before you transfer, because some schools will you won't have to fill out the application for that particular school, right? Or sometimes some schools will give you a scholarship if they have an arrangement with the college. Sometimes we want you to get that associate's degree because life happens. And sometimes you have to stop going to school for whatever reason. Either you ran out of money, or you may have something personal that happened at home and you have to pause. So we would rather you have an associate's degree than not have a degree at all, but you have a ton of credit. So that's the first thing. When you're going from a community college to a 4-year college, you want to make sure that you let your advisor know in the beginning so that they can look to see how many credits you need to transfer to that particular school. And also, you want to look to see the major that you want to go into to see how many credits you need to go into that major. So a lot of people don't talk to you about that. So that's about the 2-year, the transfer from a community to a 4-year. If you're transferring from one 4-year to another, they also don't have to take all of your credits either. So you want to make sure that you do some research and try to avoid, taking a big hit as far as transfers, because you may be a 3rd-year student at school A, and when you transfer to school B, you might be a 2nd semester freshman or 1st semester sophomore or something like that. You might not be where you're supposed to be. And also, in either case, when you transfer from a 2-year to a 4-year or a 4-year to a 4-year, they don't give you as much financial aid money as they give you as an incoming freshman. Okay, so just keep that in mind too. So if you're one of those students that's saying you're going to take a year off from school, you might not want to go to community college anywhere until you do some research about the school that you're transferring to, because some schools, if you've taken one class or 2 classes at a community college, they're going to consider you a transfer student. And so you're automatically not going to get as much aid as if you just go in as a new student, regardless of whether you just came from high school or not. Okay, I know I said a whole bunch of stuff, but basically what I'm saying is just make sure you do some research before you start going in there taking classes, and making sure that the school that you're selecting has at least 2 or 3 things that you're interested in, so that can avoid you transferring from one school to another. And sometimes it's unavoidable because you can do as much research as you want to. You go to the school and you hate it, as trash. You don't want to be there. You don't like the vibe. You don't like the people. You had a bad experience and you want to transfer. That's going to be unavoidable. But sometimes people have to transfer simply because they didn't do research from one school to another. So just meet with your advisor as soon as you get there, or just do the research that you need to do before you go. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Do you know if the mass placement tests, once accepted and committed to a school, are a factor of COVID? Hold on. And actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the video off, because when it's longer, people stop listening to most of it. So for those of you who are watching this later, thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, feel free to email me.